Welcome to the Inspired Children Parenting Program with Dr. Rosina McAlpine, making a difference to parents and children around the world.
Hello, Dr. Rosina McAlpine here, and welcome back to another episode of Interviews with Experts. Today, I'm very lucky to have on the show Jean Harris. She's the owner of Launching Life Strategies, and she's an expert in financial literacy, and she's the creator of the program called Financial Fortitude Now. So I'd really like to welcome Jean to the show. Hi, Jean.
Great to be here. Looking forward to talking with you. You know, money is one of my favorite topics.
Money's a lot of people's favorite topic. I love how you've started there. So one of the things that I'd really like to talk about today is how we can introduce the whole concept of money to children at different stages. Money's such an integral part of life. I mean, what day goes by that you don't have to deal with money, whether it's actually physically in your hands or online or by credit. So how can we start that journey, right from toddlerhood? Have you got any ideas about how even when children are very, very young and they're just learning about financial literacy or the whole idea of even money, what can we do as toddlers to help them learn and move into the world of money?
Well, I think it's a cute little story that happened with my son, okay? And the very first Christmas, I had gone to the Toys R Us, the big department store, and bought all these toys. And what did he play with? He played with a box. And a map? Really?
I think a lot of people can relate to that story.
So you're like sitting there going, and how much money did I just spend?
Yeah.
Yeah, how much money? So then I thought, okay, so when next Christmas came around, I said, I think I'm going to do it a little bit differently, and I'm going to say that Santa Claus has an allowance.
I love that idea. So Santa Claus has got a limit because there's so many children, so there's a limit.
That's a good point. I love that. He's got it. He can't spend all this money everywhere. So anyway, when we went to the store, I said, okay, you go pick out what you think you want to tell Santa Claus. I said, but I've got to tally this up, okay? So he'd come back, I'd write it down, and then when I got close to the limit of $35, I said, you're getting close. I said, so, the next item might take you over. But then at that point, he had to make some decisions. It's like, okay, I'm going to go put that back. I don't want, Santa, and you know how they start to cry. They give you that little look.
Oh, yeah.
You want to give it to them. Please, Mom, give me that.
I know. Absolutely know.
Okay. And I said, no, Santa Claus has got a limit. So I just kept coming back to it. So it was just really interesting. But my friends thought it was terrible that I was setting, because he only ended up with like a couple of toys, and everybody else had all these toys. And so when he got to be like about 4 or 5 years of age, and he still was believing in Santa Claus, and he was talking with a group of his kids, he said, they were talking about what they were going to get. And so someone said, well, Garrett, what are you going to get? Well, his friends had listed like 20 items. Gary had like 30. And I'm like sitting there going, oh, God, he's going to feel so bad. And then the other kid said, okay, is that all you're going to get? He never flinched. He said, that's all the money Santa Claus has to spend? And he was fine. And I couldn't wait to get home and call up my friend and say, guess what?
I love that story, I have to say. That whole idea of setting limits very young and him being appreciative of what he's going to get and having choices, which is so lovely, and to learn that so early. Because I know a lot of parents talk about the fact that kids don't have an understanding of money, so they think that there is this limitless supply. So being able to, from very little, feel comfortable with this whole idea of, well, Santa Claus has got a budget because there's so many children in the world, and this is my budget, and this is how I can make choices. I really love that story. I think it's one that many of you might appreciate when Christmas is coming around the corner. That could be one that you could introduce early.
That's right. I agree. I absolutely agree.
I really think that's fabulous. And one of the things with toddlers is they constantly see, I know Cameron constantly saw me go to an automatic teller machine and pull money out. And so he did think that there was an unlimited supply. You go to this machine, you press some buttons, and out comes this money. What do you suggest parents do to help children understand that that there's a bit more to this process than the money coming out of the machine.
Yes. You know, that reminds me of when my mother was raising me. And I'll never forget, I used to hate it. Because every time, like if I decided I was going to waste some food or I was going to throw something away, Mother would start off with something like this. You know what your dad does every morning when he gets up? I said, yeah, he gets up and goes to work. She said, well, yeah, he goes to work and he earns money. Do you know the money that I pay out every day? He brings that home.
Yeah.
And then we figure out what we're going to buy.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, but you know what? You know, when you throw away stuff, we're wasting food, you know? And so it's like, and it was so fascinating because she would go through this elaborate thing, and it was always amazing, no matter how many times she could bring up this story about where money was coming from, how it was spent, and how she had to, but my point is that all of a sudden, even at that early age, because this started like when I was probably like in preschool, that she was always, and she kept, what I loved is she kept reinforcing it.
Yes.
So that eventually I knew that there wasn't this money that came from the sky.
Yes. Yes. That's a great story. And kids, I think, are even seeing it more readily because of this automatic cash tellers and going to the shops and not even using money, just swiping a credit card. There's all these things that you can get by just putting this plastic through. So I really love that understanding how a family works, and that, you know, mum and dad might go out and work very hard, and that's where the money comes. And I have had that conversation with Cameron many times, because as we go to the cash teller, I've said to him, you know, mummy and daddy work, and mummy and daddy's employer puts the money in the cash teller, and he usually goes, what does employer mean? I try to use terms that he can then ask. And so he really does get that as well, and so we do the same thing, really help him understand that money is something that actually is valuable, that it is worked for, and that there is this limited supply. So I really love that story around, you know, making sure that children feel part of that whole process of budgeting, of where the money comes from and how it's spent, and particularly in waste.
Exactly. And when you mentioned that part about the bank, that was another thing, is that we did this routine thing. I knew what it was to go to a bank. I think that's the other thing. Sometimes we really don't think about the things we do every day, that we really can stop and say, look at what mommy's doing, or look at what daddy's doing. And then it gets them involved, because sometimes I think people want to go, well, I shouldn't talk about money to my child. But money is a part of everything we do. So being able to capitalize, just being really aware. And you know, children like to play. You know, they like to play house. So, you know, even like maybe before you go out, wow, we got to go to the grocery store. What are some things we need to buy before we go to the grocery store? You know, just things like that. And then we have to make some decisions, because this is how much money we have to spend. So
one of the things that we've got at home is a little cash register and a little shopping trolley and things. And Cameron's always, you know, we've put little prices on things, and so he has his limited amount of spending money.
Excellent.
We go shopping with our little trolley, and we buy all the plastic and, you know, wooden foods that we've got. And he does get a sense of the limited supply of money, all the things that we need to buy for whatever it is we're cooking, then going to the cash register, getting some change, putting in the bag. And even those little play toys, I can really see how that has translated to the supermarket. And I did want to ask you a bit about the supermarket, because there's so many incidences where you go to the supermarket with your children and their expectations about what they can buy and your expectations about what you're willing to buy are different. How can we prepare our children that when they go to the store, we do have a list and we're going to buy some certain things, and all those items that are at child height are off limits? Do you have any ideas?
Oh, yes. And because there's something I know we've talked before that you do, Kim, that I just think is so cool. Is the thing about the weekend food. Okay?
So that's just for anyone who doesn't know, that's just simply that during the week we only have everyday food, which is all your healthy foods, and then on the weekend he's allowed to have one thing on Saturday and one thing on Sunday, which is weekend food, and that's your, you know, the stuff that you really don't want them to eat too much of. That's the cakes and the lollies and the candies and things. So that's what weekend food is.
And see, what's so great about that is because when you go into stores are designed. They are truly designed to get people to pay money. I mean, that's why they're there, to make money. And that checkout line is deadly. That's, it's like.
That's true.
It's
Very
like,
true.
you know, if you really haven't really prepared the child ahead of time, you know, you could end up spending another $20 just at the checkout line, and you've already filled it. So that what you have done is you're prepping him, and so that when he gets there, I think the thing that's always so scary to me when I see parents get in the line and they get to the checkout and the kid's going, but I want, you know, and they're crying and they're screaming and they're hollering, but by this time they're melting down, and so of course they give in. But you know, in your case, you've already prepared him, so when he gets there, he goes, it's not the weekend.
No.
You know, so those are the kinds of tactics that we can really start to think about, because that's the mistake sometimes we make. We think about it after the fact. It's too late when we're at the store and he's kicking and screaming on the floor.
Absolutely. Because there's no reasoning then. So you can't talk to a child then. The only thing you can do is calm, right?
It's calm, or give them what they want, which is either way, you know.
You're losing.
You're losing.
That's right. So what I'm hearing here is that, you know, let's sort of wind up the talk on toddlers and, you know, very young children. First of all, expose them to money very early and explain how it works in the household. Set limits and let them make choices within those limits. And so what we're talking about here, and prepare them. Prepare them for the situations that you know could be potentially very dangerous situations. So if they know, we're going to the store now and here's the list of all the things we're buying, and you can pick one thing for the weekend or for tonight, or what would you like to, you know, buy, and here's your $5 or whatever it is. You've got them ready for that. And so really what we're talking about is life skills, isn't it? And that is financial literacy. So we're teaching them how to understand what money is and learn a little bit. And the earlier we teach them, the easier it's going to be as you go, right?
It is.
It's just building blocks.
It's building blocks. It really is. I have to stop you for a moment, and I thought of something that had happened this week in the news. We just lost Mandela.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very sad.
I know this is going to be, so bear with me as I tell you this. But you know, when we have a child and we hold him in our arms, you know, we don't know what this child's going to be. No. And you know, I think about Mandela's mother. She didn't know what he was going to be. But my point is that we as parents, when we hold them, we're really guiding them to adulthood. And we don't know what they're going to turn out to be. And if we don't really give them those skills along the way, they're not going to be able to grow and be the thriving adult that we want them to be. Because we are their guide, we're their coach. And that's why, so just what you just said about what are some of the things we need to keep track of at each stage.
Absolutely. And so while we're teaching them to be a kind, good, caring person, to love education and learning, to understand how to take care of their bodies and be healthy, at the same time, we need to help them understand about managing money. And so let's move away from toddlers to maybe the preteen, or sometimes I think they're called tweens as well. So there's this kind of young child, but before they get to teenagers, what are some of the strategies? Because they're obviously at this stage, especially, you know, the girls, some of the guys I think too, and the young boys would be very concerned about fashion, and they'd have a lot more purchases that they're very interested in gaining. So what would you recommend to parents how to support younger children, not teenagers, but younger children, so moving away from toddler to the next stage?
Yes. You know, one of the things, when you were talking about taking them to the bank and all, is that it's now maybe time to give them some money to work with. You know, you're going to have to make some choices. And I saw the greatest little bank, and it has compartments. It's like spend, save, donate, and invest. So it's like, okay, when you get this money, you need to think about a certain percentage needs to go in the spend. But the nice thing about the bank is that they can see it.
Yes.
They can see that money, they can see it accumulating, because now it has value. That's one thing I feel that helps a child to start to make connections. Now I've got the money, what are some things? My dad used to always say, there are 3 things you're doing with money. You're either spending it, saving it, or managing it. And guess what? Whatever you're doing the most of, determines how much you have at the end of the day. And so when we teach our children how to divide that money up, it makes a big difference. That's one thing that I'd recommend. That's the next step, is teaching them. Let's take a look at maybe the concept of allowance or something. And it can be just $1, but 10 cents here, 10 cents there, 20 cents over here, 30 cents. But again, they begin to go, okay, but why am I doing that, you know? And then when you were talking about that little dress you want to buy, or, you know, I mean, but if it's something that is small, like maybe if it's maybe a pad or a little notepad or something that's a little that is, but let's just think about what are some things you want to buy. So then, but you're going to plan that. That's another piece of it too.
I love that. I love this lovely structure that you can have. So there are, you know, even if you can't find that special bank that you were talking about, you could make 3 jars with sticky labels on them.
Yes.
But I really love the concept of, okay, so here's this limited amount of money, and now I need to divide it. I need to make choices about what I'm going to do with it. So here's my spend pile, here's my invest for the future pile, here's my philanthropic pile, my donate some money. And I think that's really important, because one of the things that Colin and I often do with Cameron is every week we go and buy a magazine called The Big Issue, and that's for homeless people in Australia. And so Cameron's there, we give him the money, and he always says to us, why do we buy this every week? And I say, because we have money, and we have a lot of money, and we need to care for people who don't have as much money as us. So that whole idea of donating, that whole idea of giving is such an important thing to start as early. And so he loves that. He knows that. So here's this little pile where your child could say, well, what charity is important to me? Where would you like to give this money? Would it be children that are in hospital, or would it be homeless children, or would it be something else that you'd like to give to? So I think it's that whole idea of all of a sudden you've introduced this whole idea of kindness and giving and sharing.
Exactly. And that's why I said that money is such an integral part. When we connect it to the healthy thing, because really, if you're doing things healthy for your body, if you're doing things for other people, overall, you're building a healthier person. And so it all comes into play. So I think that's just an awesome idea that you're doing with him, and exposing him to that.
So everyone could do that. And what we're teaching the kids then at that point in time is that they have choices over their money. And I love the idea that you said, okay, so there might be some things that you can buy straight away, so it's a little notepad or something. But then there's these big projects. I want, you know, Lego something, or I want this really special dress or whatever. So how do we help kids learn about this whole idea of budgeting and then sources of income and that sort of thing? How can we get these pre-teens on the idea of not just where we're going to spend, but where's this money going to come from?
Well, I have a story from my dad. Okay, I'm the only girl, all right? So, you know, when you're the only girl, you think you can get everything. But I was right around the time when, you know, we're starting to, you know, I can wear this, I can wear that, you know. But I saw these shoes that they were high heel shoes. I was going to get my first pair of high heel shoes. And so anyway, you know, I went to Dad. I said, I'd like to get some high heel shoes. Yeah. And he pondered, and he went, really? Yeah, can we go downtown tomorrow and get them? He said, no. And I'm like going, huh? I'm your little girl? You're not going to do that? And then he said, He said, you know, when I go to bed at night, I sleep. Duh. Does that make it?
Okay, keep going. I'm sure there's a point.
And I'm doing the same thing. I'm like, what? He said, you got to understand something. I don't have the money for those shoes right now. He said, but I will have money for those shoes down the road. It'll probably be about another month, because I've got to earn that money. He said, but why don't you do this in the meantime? Why don't you figure out what shoes you want to buy? So then I did. I got caught up. Yeah. But this is what else he said when he finished. He said, well, let me just tell you something. He said, because I will buy you the best shoes that my money can afford. So it was like, I've got this to work with. How much money, what shoes, and I can remember Rosina, how every time I went downtown with my mom, I'd head for the shoe department, and we always went into some of these nearly upscale stores. So I'm like, going, how can I find these really beautiful shoes? And I had seen this real, and I finally found it, got on sale even. And so I said, but my point is that at the point in time, he said, okay, we now have the money. He gave it to my mom and went downtown and we bought the shoes. But I'll never forget what that was like, planning to get those shoes. And I'm telling you, I cared for those shoes.
Yes.
Because my parents had they had all these little routines, and I think that's the other part, valuing what we have.
Yes.
Because every week we would sit down, we would clean up our shoes, we'd take out a polish and polish it up. So, I mean, those shoes, they probably just about fell on my feet, because I was so, they were such beautiful shoes. I can still see my first pair of black high heel shoes. It was just.
I have to say, I love that story. I think it teaches so many things, and I'm just going to pull them apart now. So first of all, here's something that you really want, and you valued it because you didn't just say, here, Dad, I need some shoes, and he says, yeah, sure, no problem, here's your shoes. Would you have valued them in the same way as you did? So first of all, you had to wait. You had to make choices. And then there's this word, value for money. So you started to say, oh, which is the best shoes for the money I can get? And here's ones that are on sale, so I can get a better pair of shoes, but they're on sale. And then after that, there's this whole idea of you have something that's very special. You waited a long time to get it. You knew that it didn't come easily. You looked after it. And they're things that you've carried, I assume, throughout your life.
Yes. You know what other thing he said to me? He said, because you deserve the best. I mean, I still can feel those words even as I say them now, you know, and that's the way he was. He said, I will always get you the best that my money can afford, because you deserve the best. So you're even valuing the child, you know, because that says something. Oh, I'm worth something, you know. It just makes you stand tall.
And I just have to stop on that beautiful note. Where else would you want to end than you deserve the best? And I know that every parent wants to give their child the best. And just by saying, you deserve the best that my money can buy, what a gorgeous note to end on. Thank you so much, Jean. I've really enjoyed being here with you today. Thank you for all the tips that you've given us. And I hope everyone out there has got so many ideas about how to take care of financial literacy, help your child learn about money from a toddler's age right through to the tween,
Easy for you to say.
Pre-teen or tween. And I'm going to have you back to talk about teenagers, please.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone. See you in the next show.